We're in Vermont. We're about 20 minutes outside of Burlington. We have a drive, our first event for Exit 5. Mark hit me up and was like, can we do an interview with you before drive, but let's do it on the golf course? And I was like, absolutely.
I was not expecting you to say yes in like 5 minutes.
But twist my arm.
It was pretty much like a 5 minute
yeah,
yes.
it's much better. No, yeah, this is fun. So let's have have some fun.
Yeah.
All right. This is what it would feel like to be a YouTube golf celebrity, do you think? This could go anywhere, so buckle up.
That's a guy who knows how to golf.
It's a Titleist Pro V1X. That's what we play. Oh, smooth. Let's go. You didn't hit breakfast ball. You can play that. I don't know what to expect out of Mark's golf game today. I'll give you a rate. Between us, I'll give you a rating like 3 or 4 rounds in, okay? We'll see where he's at. All right, here we go. The Ridge.
Granted, I didn't really know anything about Vermont, and I still don't, but
yeah,
I totally
I
didn't realize that there were going to be hills and mountains.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Also, I think we're, staying downtown, I think a lot of people are going to realize, like, I think when I tell people I live in Vermont, everybody thinks that I live in like a cabin in the woods. And then you go to Burlington and you're like, oh, it's just like, you're like at any kind of little city.
Chunked it.
All right.
Cutting that one.
Fine. You're cutting that one. No cuts. There's no cuts. This is what people want.
I know. All right, so I was doing my research and I found, I was actually reading it on the way here, but I found it when I was putting the outline together.
Okay.
A Medium article that you wrote in 2016.
Yeah.
Funny part is everything that you wrote in there like still pretty much holds true today. But you mentioned that you wanted to be an NBA player at one point.
Yep. I just loved sports growing up, and basketball was my favorite sport. So like, I wanted to be maybe a pitcher, an NBA player. I think when I wrote that, I thought NBA player would be funnier because I'm short. I hope you're rolling, because 93 is a good number, Mark. Oh, sit. Okay, that's okay.
Yep, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And
I think like I meant not even specifically about NBA, but I just like, I think there was a point in my life where I didn't think of like ever having a real job. Like I just loved sports and stuff growing up, that I just was like, yeah, that's all I did. That's what I wanted to be.
You played some college baseball for a bit too?
I did for a bit, yeah. So I went to college and I wasn't gonna play any sports, and then I was a pretty good baseball player in high school. I was a pitcher. And then I went to college and I made a bunch of friends on the baseball team, and I thought they were all kind of clowns. And I was like, well, if they can be on this team, maybe I can. And then they were like, you should try out. So we played catch. I tried out. I made the team, but I was wrong. They were so much better than me.
Yeah.
It was a small D1 school.
Yeah.
So I didn't play that much. I think looking back now, I wish I went to like a D2, a small D2 or D3 school, and like actually played.
Yep.
And by my senior year, I wasn't playing at all, so I just quit and just enjoyed my last year in college, like not doing that whole dance.
All right, let's do this. No. Yeah. I was trying to get it through.
I know. I wish we talked through that a little bit. I hope you got this on camera. My guy didn't even look. Like all he had to do was a low punch. He had 80 yards. You just got to get you to hit that low one.
I surveyed it. How much running did you have to do as a pitcher?
So much. It's so dumb.
You want to
Go all the way up here. Yeah. Come on. I'm very type A on the golf course. Like there's just a place you got to be. You got to be in a certain spot. Like. Mark. There you go. All right.
Much better.
Oh, we had to run all the time, but it was so dumb. I hated it. And I didn't run for like 10 years. And now I run basically every day, but because it feels amazing. It's for my mental health. Like it's different.
As you were running back then, did you ever think you would enjoy running down the line?
No. In much better shape than I even was then, because like you're just younger. Like it doesn't really matter. You're just kind of like You basically run like, we used to have like a fitness test and you run to cram before the test.
Yep.
Now, all right. Why not us today, Mark? Why not?
This guy. You're good.
Might have been, there's just some fireworks out here today. All right. Okay.
All right, so you give up the pitching in the majors, you give up the NBA dream.
Yeah.
Then comes a PR internship.
Then I decided to be a B2B marketing influencer, obviously.
No, you're cutting to the final chapter.
Sorry. Yeah, so I
What did David, the PR intern, do?
David. So I graduated college in 2009, and there was like no job. There was no jobs. What's funny is my degree was in marketing, and everybody that sees that now is like, oh, you must have always been into marketing. No, it's like I couldn't do anything but write and communicate, and so I took that as a major because I didn't know, like I had no serious ambitions to do anything. I graduated from college, I couldn't get a job. So I just stayed working at this golf course that I grew up working at until I graduated in May. Until like October of that year, I just applied to everything that I could. And I applied to this PR internship at this company called Lois Paul and Partners. And there was $10 an hour for a PR intern, and like they were the only person that said yes. And so I just took that job. And that was the first thing that got me into work.
Yep.
And early on in that internship, it turns out I was good at that. Like this was like old school, like 2009 PR clients. Like I was writing tweets for them, and like we'd write tweets in an Excel sheet.
No way.
Send over to the client, they would approve them, we'd post on their behalf. I was like pitching bloggers and stuff like that, doing like, briefing docs and just kind of like 101 level PR stuff. And I was pretty good at it, not intentionally. And it was like this amazing feeling of like, I would get a reporter to write back to me, or I'd land some coverage from my client, or the tweets and stuff, or the copy that I wrote was good, or I'd get a lot of feedback on writing and stuff. And it was like, oh, cool. This is actually like, I've been competitive my whole life in sports or something, but like I'm starting to get good at work. And I think that was fun. It was fun to feel that. And I just kind of like took off there. I had some really awesome mentors there. This one guy that I work with there, he would, like I couldn't even write an email to the client without like the manager like looking at a draft of it. That's how like much they had the reins on me, right?
Yeah.
And then he'd send me emails back with like red lines and all the shit that I should have changed and everything. And I hated it at the time, but it was like an amazing way to learn how to write in a client-facing role. And I think that's kind of what was like the foundation for me.
That's tough to follow. Do you still keep in touch with that person or no?
No.
What were some of the clients that you would do PR for?
It all actually was tech, like unintentionally. It was all like data, security. Yeah, let's go.
There we go.
We'll take that.
So is that where you started the first podcast then?
No, I didn't start that until a couple years later. So I worked at this PR agency for like 2 years. And then there's a theme in my career where like until I went to Drift, I jumped around a lot. I basically went to a new company every year or two. I get bored. I get bored a lot. I get bored, I guess, really, really easily, and I can be pretty impulsive. So I did that, and then I wanted to. The PR agency that I was at, it was a great learning experience, but I just didn't feel like I was gonna be there for a long time, and I
wanted to go out somewhere. Yep. And there was a software company called Constant Contact. They were like they basically got disrupted by MailChimp, but they were like the first company really doing email marketing. I remember back in the day, sure. And they had an in-house PR job, like a PR associate or something. So I applied to that and I got it. And I ended up leaving the PR agency. And that was my first real moment at work. Like they were real mad when I left. Like heartbroken. Like I was like a young and up and coming person there, and I think the boss I had took it really personally, and that was like a weird thing.
But I went to Constant Contact and it was cool because I got to be in-house and work on one product.
Yep.
They were launching this like social media product, and so I got to work with a bunch of like entrepreneurial type of people inside of a company and see how like a software company worked, and quickly realized like, oh, I don't just want to do PR. I want to be involved in all the marketing stuff. And after like a year in this PR job, they had a product marketing job opening.
Yep.
And I applied for that inside the company and made that switch. And that was when I first really got into like marketing, I guess.
So then,
Hold on, not to put Mark on blast, but
Yeah.
just, can you just show where my ball is real quick?
but to also put Mark on
Yeah,
blast.
I mean, come on. See that one way out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as I told one of my user evidence buddies that you said yes, he was the one who looked you up and
Yeah.
screenshotted your handicap,
Yeah,
and
I'm
I was
sure.
like, I wish I could take this back.
I'm sure. Yeah. All right. Doesn't always happen that way. Golf is.
So then you're at Constant Contact.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool because they acquired this like social media company.
And I got to work as like kind of like the PR, like they acquired this social media company, and then the founder of that company became part of their company, right? He was like the GM of this business unit. And I was basically like their PR person. I was trying to get them in TechCrunch, and we did all that. And it was like, I got to see like an entrepreneur, and I was so like in awe of that. I was like, man, this dude is amazing. Like, and I went to South by Southwest with them for the first time, and I got to see like the inside of like building a product and building a company.
And then I was there for, let's see what we got. So this is like a weird shot.
Where's the hole at?
It's around here. It's like over this willow tree. All right, look out. I just don't know if I can get it high enough. Oh.
Uh-oh. In the drink.
In the hazard. Now, we can still make a 5 from
We
there.
can cut that out too.
No, absolutely not. You better not. You better not cut that out because that was flush. It just was a little bit too far up there.
So then I'm at Constant Contact, and like similar thing. It was a big company. There was a very impatient, and there was like, I remember sitting in meetings and just like watching so much like just nonsense like so slow to make things happen, or this is this person's job or that person's job.
Yeah, perfect. Nice shot. And through being there, so I started to get into startups because my job in PR was like, I was reading TechCrunch, and this was like 2009, 2010, 2011 TechCrunch. Like, it was like the thing. And I was
Learning all about startups, and it was so cool to me.
And my cousin starts dating this guy, and his brother is starting this company called Privy, and they were kind of in a similar space as Constant Contact. And so she ends up talking to him. He's like, oh, I'll meet with him, and maybe we could like, I'm kind of building out this company. And so I have lunch with this guy, and he's like, yeah, I think I could find a job for you on our team. We just don't have any marketing jobs open right now. He's like, could you do like account management, customer success? Which is really funny now to think about me doing that. Right?
Seriously.
But I said yeah, and I just wanted to like get the job. I just wanted to work at a startup, and so I think my salary was like 50 grand, and it was like a company raised like $1 million. The team was like 7-8 people, and it was like the coolest thing ever. Like just going to a startup, like a true startup. There's like no rules, no HR, like everybody's just figuring this thing out. And so that was like my first stop at Privy. And I went there, and my job was, they had like, 20 customers, and my job was to be their point person. But like a common thread is I ended up kind of just like doing more than that. I sold a little bit, I helped with marketing a little bit. I was really close with the product guys and the founders and stuff. And I was broke, and we were getting married. And Mike Volpe, who was the CMO at HubSpot, was an investor and advisor at Privy. I had started my podcast at Privy called Tech in Boston, where I was going around interviewing like startup founders in Boston area.
The Medium article that I saw was when I think Ben offered up the Privy office.
Yeah, it was so cool because like I wanted to start it, but I didn't know like where to go or do anything. And he was like, dude, you should just do this. Start like recording in our office. I'll be your first. And that was so cool. I know a lot of bosses who would not be down for that. Especially today, everybody's like, well, you're going to build your personal brand. You're going to become bigger, whatever. He was totally down to support it. And nobody was really doing a podcast like that at the time. It seems so crazy now. But basically everybody said yes. And so I'm like this little like 25-year-old kid with my microphone in my backpack. I'm going to all the top VCs and CEOs in Boston. I would go to their offices and record. I did 60 episodes and like I got to go out and meet all these people, and I built my own network. I built an email list. I got sponsors for the first time. That was all while I was at Privy. And that was my first taste of like, yes, I've worked at Privy. I went to Drift. I did HubSpot. I did all this stuff. But I think that was the thing for me. That was like my first real thing of my own. Like the first company to pay me like $3,000 for a sponsorship of the podcast was like, I'm the richest man in America.
Like I made it.
But it was cool because it was my thing. Like I did that. But anyway, Privy basically went out of business. And Mike, who was the CMO at HubSpot, he was like, hey, we want to start a podcast at HubSpot. We want to hire a full-time podcaster. And this was like a nuts idea back then.
And what year is this then?
This was 2015, 2014, 2015. He's like, I know what's happening with Privy. Come to HubSpot, help us launch this podcast. And I was like, wait, this is gonna be my full-time job to do the podcast? And he was like, yeah, we're gonna do it. And HubSpot's always done it. They've hired like journalists, whatever. Now to have a podcast or your company is like, well, But that back then it was not. And so I worked for this guy, Joe Chernov, who was the CMO at Pendo, and Mike Volpe, and we launched this podcast called The Growth Show. And that was my job. So I left Privy. I went to HubSpot. I worked there for a little bit. And it got to #1 in iTunes, like in the first 6 months. It was #5 in the business category.
Well, there was I think it was one of your LinkedIn posts. You were talking about setting goals, and you're like, oh, I want to set a goal for something. And
no, Joe was like,
no,
you're at HubSpot. Like you can't set like a goal, like publish 12 episodes. It's like the goal has to be like, we need to create the #1 business podcast. But we had an amazing network. We had the network of like Dharmesh and Brian Halligan and Volpe, and so we got amazing guests. Mike was the host. And there's some crazy stuff that happened, and him and Joe ended up leaving the company 9 months after that. And I was kind of feeling like, even while I was there doing the podcast, I kind of had this same itch again. Like, I feel like I should be doing so much more. I'm not just the podcast guy. And in July of that year, after being there for 9 months, I had David Cancel on Tech in Boston, my podcast.
Was that the first time you met him?
First time we met him. They were launching Drift. He was like this mythical entrepreneur to me. And I just DM'd him and he said, hey, we're doing a launch party for Drift. Like, do you want to come? And then also like, and when he said that, because I had like a mini media outlet, so they wanted me to like write about Drift. And so I took that as my chance to ask him to come on the podcast. He did. We hit it off in that podcast episode. The next day, as I'm writing the show notes, like that night, I see on Angel List that they have a job opening for marketing manager, and I applied. And I immediately got a message back from Keith, who was the recruiter, and he's like, hey, thanks for applying, like we just filled the role, sorry. And I was like, damn. That same afternoon, I get another email back from Keith, and he's like, actually, never mind, David wants to have you in and meet.
Unreal.
And so I went in, I met with them, and he was like, oh, like, we talked about working there, I met with Elias. Things went, and literally their office was directly across the street from HubSpot. Like I left I was working on the payroll at HubSpot. I went across the street.
That's it.
Will you pull the card up and grab my putter?
Yes, Mr. Gerhardt.
Normally I would putt this, but I don't want to wait.
All right, so then
I literally walk across the street. I meet with David. I meet with Elias. Things go really well, but then they're like, I was getting married like the next month, and they're like, yeah, you know, this is really interesting. Like, we really want to work with you, but they're like, go get married, go on your honeymoon, come back, we'll talk. And it was like the first thing in my life that I was like, no, these guys are like tier 1, like. David was the chief product officer at HubSpot. Elias ran engineering. HubSpot bought their last company for $30 million. Like, they were big deals. They raised $15 million from Sequoia without having like done anything yet. I was like, they want me to possibly work at this company? No way. This is my chance, like, to get in, right? But they were like, yeah, go away, and then we'll talk when you come back. Oh, I pulled it. That's a 6, Mark. Too many stories in here.
All part of my plan.
Yeah. So So I was like, I came home and I was like, no way, I can't go away. They had like tier 1 network. I'm like, dude, they're gonna find a real fucking marketing person. Like if I go away to get married, they're not gonna hire me. I still feel this way about myself. Like just everybody has imposter syndrome, right? And this time I'm like, 26, 27, I haven't done anything. So it just didn't feel right. And I was like, no, I've never done this. And I was like, no. I was like, I need to meet with you tomorrow. And I think they loved that.
Yeah.
Like, I think looking back, they were like, really? And I never have pushed back on something like that before. But I remember I met with Elias, David was somewhere, and I was like, I need this job. I was like, you need to hire me. I'm the guy for this job, I need it. And they basically were like, yeah, we love it, done, we're in.
So what was going through your head as you were getting ready to like tell them that? Like you had to have been nervous, right?
I was nervous, but like I had nothing to lose. Like it was like
it's a confident move. I think
being like in a relationship. Like if there's somebody you really think that is like right for you to be with.
Yeah.
You just have to. It was that moment in the rain where you're out there and I love I just had to do it.
Yep.
And so I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm not going away on this honeymoon without an offer, because they're gonna get some actually good marketer from Sequoia or something like while I'm gone. And I got an offer, I signed it, and then I got back from my honeymoon and I started at Drift, and it was kind of like it. But even still, I wasn't running marketing, I just was like a guy.
Yeah.
Just to help them start stuff,
How fired up were you on the honeymoon? Probably gonna be so pumped.
I think I was fired up, but I also had no idea what to expect. It just was in such a different league of like where I was at anyway. Oh boy. Okay, Mark. Look at this guy. Good shot. We're so short.
I got it sometimes. Consistency is what I'm fighting right now.
Yeah.
Nothing like an old gas golf cart.
Oh yeah. This is what you get out here.
I love it.
They're like,
wow.
oh.
Wow.
We get that camera for a sec. The way he said wow right there is actually like, what did he expect?
So when and we're not gonna talk about Drift too much because I feel like people kind of know you from Drift. What's the first thing you remember having to do when you were at Drift? And it was the marketing manager role, right?
Yeah, the first thing was just like, start. And so we started writing content, and I just kind of like, I would say the first thing that I remember was really not like a specific thing, but just kind of like, I just took on everything. Like, okay, we got to get the website going. We got to get email going. We got to, some of that stuff already existed, but like, it was very clear from the beginning that like, David was really into like my style of working, and we really meshed well together. And I think until like he had a vision of the things he wanted to do, and he kind of finally had this like young, hungry person who was like ready to do more stuff. And I remember like a couple months in, he wrote this like internal wiki post about just like talking about the company and like how they want to build this company of like getting done and autonomy. And he shouted out this designer and then me as somebody who like has come in and there's no roadmap for marketing, and maybe he's not done this before, but this guy's just kind of like taking everything on and just like started to figure shit out. And that was just, looking back now, that was so important in my career to be like, to get a job where like you can do all this stuff for the first time. And,
yeah. All right, let's drain this, Mark.
He's gonna drain it. Let's go. You gotta hit it, son. Oh, good putt. We'll give him that one. I give it to him.
What would you say your favorite memory is from the Drift days?
Well, let me just bang this in and I'll tell you. I think it was just like being around a team that like had really high expectations, and I got access to a lot of things. Like one time Elias and I went to we did this like CMO tour with Sequoia, where we went to Sequoia's office with Pat Grady, who's our investor there.
Yep.
And he took us around to all these cool companies, and we had an hour with the CMO of Facebook at the time to just like sit and just talk to him. And I think
And you're how old at this point?
I was probably 30.
Sitting there talking with the CMO of Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm a professional podcast host, so I could, we could talk about anything. But I think it was just like these people that you're working with, they wanted to be like, build this amazing company. And I think their expectations of me were higher than those that I had for myself.
Yep.
And I think that was like, comfortable at times, but it also pushed me to learn how to work,